I moved into the building because it was cheap and close to work, and because it didn't ask much of me. No references, no questions about why I was moving alone, just a set of keys, a lease that felt older than it should have been, and a reminder to keep noise down after 10. The building was 4 stories tall, red brick, narrow windows, the kind of place that looks permanent even when it isn't maintained. There was no elevator, just a single central staircase that ran from the basement car park to the top floor, boxed in by concrete walls and yellowed handrails polished smooth by decades of hands. The first night I carried my boxes up the stairs, I noticed how quiet it was. Not peaceful, just contained. Sound didn't travel the way it should have. My footsteps felt slightly delayed, like the echoes were deciding whether they wanted to follow me or not. I counted the steps without meaning to, 22 to the first landing. I remember that clearly because I had to stop there to catch my breath. I didn't think anything of it. You never do, at first. The staircase became part of my routine almost immediately. Up in the morning, down at night, groceries balanced awkwardly in one arm, keys in the other. The lighting never changed. Always dim, always yellow, always humming faintly like it was struggling to stay awake. After a few days, I noticed something small. The first landing felt closer than it should have, not shorter or steeper, just sooner. I reached it before my body expected to, my foot hitting flat concrete while my muscles were still preparing for another step, and I stumbled slightly. I laughed it off and kept moving. The second landing felt fine. So did the third. When I reached my floor, I told myself it was nothing. Fatigue, distraction, adjusting to a new space. That's what you tell yourself when nothing is technically wrong. A week later, I realized I'd stopped counting the steps. Not consciously, just naturally. The number no longer stuck. I'd start counting out of habit and then lose track somewhere around 10, my mind sliding off the task like it didn't consider it important. One night, halfway up, I forced myself to start again, whispering the numbers under my breath, anchoring each one to a step. I made it to 14 before I felt that same strange anticipation in my legs, the sense that I was about to arrive somewhere. The landing appeared under my foot at 17. 17. I stood there for a moment, heart beating a little faster than it needed to. That wasn't right. I was sure it wasn't right. So I went back down and tried again. The second time, I counted carefully, out loud, and reached the landing at 22, exactly where it should have been. I stood there staring at the concrete wall, feeling foolish. That should have been the end of it. It wasn't. The building had other residents, though I didn't see them often. People came and went quietly, heads down, keys ready, like they'd learned something about not lingering. I asked my neighbor on the 3rd floor about the stairs one evening, trying to sound casual, asking if she knew how many steps there were between floors. She paused for just a fraction of a second, then smiled and said she'd never counted, asking why she would. When I said I was just curious, she shrugged and told me they'd always been like that. Like what? I almost asked, but the conversation had already closed. I started noticing how people used the staircase. No one leaned on the handrails. No one stopped on the landings. People moved through it with a steady, uninterrupted pace, eyes forward, footsteps measured. Even when they passed each other, There was no hesitation, just a subtle adjustment of path, like dancers who'd rehearsed the space. A man on the second floor always waited for me to finish climbing before he started down, not politely, but instinctively, like crossing paths mid-stair was something you avoided without needing a reason. One morning, I tried stopping halfway between floors just to see how it felt. It felt wrong, not dangerous, not frightening, just incomplete, like pausing mid-sentence and refusing to finish the thought. I stood there for maybe 5 seconds before a pressure built behind my eyes, subtle but insistent, urging me to move. I finished the climb quickly, heart racing, annoyed at myself for reacting that way. The building plans were posted near the mailboxes on the ground floor, a faded evacuation diagram behind cracked plastic. I stared at it one night, tracing the staircase with my finger. It was drawn simply, straight lines, equal spacing, but the labels were smudged, the step count unreadable, as if someone had rubbed it away repeatedly. I took a photo on my phone. Later, when I checked, the image blurred exactly where the staircase was drawn. Everything else was sharp. I deleted the photo without knowing why. I began to realize the staircase behaved differently depending on how I approached it. If I was tired, it felt longer. If I was distracted, the landings arrived too early. If I focused too hard, counting each step, the numbers slid out of order. I'd swear I'd reached 12 twice, or skipped from 9 to 11 without noticing. The most unsettling part wasn't the inconsistency. It was how quickly my brain accepted it, like it wanted to cooperate. A woman on the top floor stopped appearing. Her apartment stayed dark, door locked, no sign of a move. When I asked the building manager about it, he told me she hadn't moved out. He said she was still here, just not arriving anymore. He didn't explain, and I didn't ask again. After that, I paid closer attention. People on higher floors left earlier. People on lower floors came home later. No one rushed the staircase, and no one lingered. One night, I heard footsteps above me while I was climbing. Slow, deliberate, heavy. I never caught up to them. The sound simply resolved, like it had reached a destination I couldn't see. I started keeping notes, not numbers, but impressions. Landing feels closer tonight. Echo off by half a beat. Steps feel taller when angry. I stopped writing dates after I realized I couldn't remember which day was which. Time behaved strangely in the building too, bending around routines instead of clocks. The staircase wasn't changing. It was redistributing. Space wasn't being added or removed, just reassigned. Some people arrived faster, some people took longer, some people never quite finished the journey. One night, I stood at the bottom of the staircase and looked up, really looked. The stairs rose in a straight line, fading into shadow near the 3rd floor, nothing visibly wrong. I took a step, then another. Halfway up, I stopped and turned around. The ground floor looked farther away than it should have, not dramatically, just enough to tighten my stomach. I turned back and continued climbing. The landing arrived under my foot with that same premature certainty. I didn't count. I didn't question it. I understood then that the staircase wasn't a path. It was a process. From that night on, I followed the unspoken rules. I didn't count, didn't stop, didn't look back. I matched my pace to the building's expectations, and it worked. The pressure eased. The echoes behaved. The landings appeared when my body expected them to. I started arriving on time again, but something else began to slip. I forgot where I'd put things, forgot conversations, forgot how long I'd lived there. I'd reach my apartment door and hesitate, keys in hand, needing a moment to remember which side of the landing was mine. The staircase was efficient. It didn't waste anything, including me. The day I realized what people meant by still here was the day I saw her. A woman standing on the landing between floors, not moving, not falling, just paused. She wasn't blocking the stairs. She wasn't in the way. She was positioned precisely where a landing should have been, even though there wasn't one. Her feet didn't touch the steps. They rested in the air like the space had decided to hold her. I walked past without stopping and didn't look at her face. I understood the rule by then. If you acknowledge them, you join them. Everyone agrees the staircase has always been like this. That's how the building stays functional. That's how space keeps behaving. Disagreement introduces friction. Friction causes delays, and delays make people linger. And lingering is how you get misplaced. I still live there. I still use the stairs. I don't count anymore. I don't stop. I don't wonder how many steps there are between floors, because the moment you ask how long something should take, you risk not arriving at all. And sometimes, late at night when the building is quiet, I hear footsteps that match mine exactly, not ahead and not behind, but slightly out of sync, like an echo that learned how to walk. When that happens, I keep moving. Because everyone agrees the staircase has always been like this. And the staircase agrees too.